Welcome back everyone, this is Eric from Moss Pawn & Gun, and today we got another how-to video for you. We're going to be disassembling a K31 service rifle. I'm not going to cover reassembly in this video because obviously we're going to be sending this gun off for a little bit of work. This one's going out to Ken at Rock Solid to get drilled and tapped for one of their ultra low profile rock solid mounts, and this thing's going to be put together into a nice little tack driver. This gun, I was running the St. Marie scope mount on it, and I was getting about third minute of angle groups out of it. So very, very exceptional accuracy out of this rifle. You'll see some video clips here in a moment showing it in use. But we're going to go ahead and get this little guy taken apart. First thing with disassembly, go ahead and remove your magazine. Magazine's empty, set it there on the table. Pull the bolt back all the way, inspect the chamber. Chamber's empty. Pull down on this little lever, and the bolt comes out. I'm going to cover bolt disassembly in this video, but I will also, at a later date, be posting a separate video for bolt disassembly, just as a reference for you guys. All right, go ahead and start by taking your trigger guard screws out. Make sure you're using an appropriate sized flat head. You can see that the screwdriver bit actually fills up the whole head all the way down to the bottom of the slot. That's what you want. Or if you're like Barry, you can just use a Swiss Army knife. I guess that's fine. Notice the way these screws look so that when you reassemble the gun, you have a lot better idea of what's going on. These steps are pretty self-explanatory when it comes to reassembly. Just take your time and just reverse the instructions. Of course, the rear screw is longer of the two. It actually interfaces with a threaded tang on the back of the receiver, which you'll see in a moment. There's your trigger guard, sheet metal. No big deal there. All right, I'm gonna flip the muzzle wind around to you. We got a couple of screws that need to be taken out here. We got the nose cap assembly, which helps hold the upper handguard on. Go ahead and loosen that up. And you notice I don't really keep this very tight, and that's because I don't want to put too much torque on the stock. All right, that just drops right off. That's your stacking swivel and nose band. That's for your bayonet stacking swivel, is what they call that. Your bayonet lug, and then this is to stack the rifles. All right, rear band screw. Notice the orientation of that screw, how it looks, pretty unique. You're not going to get that mixed up. Depress the stock band right here. That slides off. Okay. You notice that they'll clear the front sight post, barely. They design them that way. All right, at this point, your upper handguard will come right off. They are numbered. The numbers should match the receiver if you got an all matching specimen. Notice the beechwood, how clean it is on the inside. No pitting on the barrel. A lot of the exterior surfaces of the metal generally will have some wear and some honest ugliness on it, but it's nothing to be worried about. At this point, the action should lift completely out of the stock with very little to no effort. You can see the fine quality of which these stocks are made. Again, the stock is numbered. Again, the serial number right there, stamped on the inside of the stock. Very good fit and finish, very good quality. The shellac that is on this stock is actually an original style of shellac that they use when they do arsenal repairs. They'll shellac them. That is completely normal. The wear and tear on this stock is completely normal. They're usually what they call beaver chewed here around the bottom of the stock, and that's from where a lot of the Swiss soldiers take them in and out of the rucksacks up on the mountain and doing a lot of stomping around and drilling out in the snow. And a lot of times they'll use the butt stocks of the rifle to clear the snow off of the cleats on their boots, and that's where all this water damage comes from. I am going to retain this stock, even though we are putting together a little sporterizing project. I'm going to keep the original stock just in case I want to put it back into original configuration. Now, a lot of the hardware is pretty straightforward to remove if you deem necessary. We'll go ahead and get on that task now. All right, we're going to go ahead and remove the rear sight. Just take you a little brass hammer like this one, give it a little tap, Okay, grab a punch. Normally I would clamp this up to do this, but I'm trying to give the cameraman an open angle to be able to see what I'm doing. All right, pull your punch out and the rear sight blade will just kind of pop off. It's going to be under some tension. There you go, just like that. All right, there's your rear sight assembly. If you want to pull the graduator off, just go ahead and pull it all the way off. And then that'll come apart just like that if you so wish. There's a little spring in there that can get lost, be careful. This whole assembly will get ultrasonicked and stored for later. For my sporterizing job, I don't think any of this stuff is going to go back on the rifle. Pull the leaf spring up and out, just like on any other milsurp. Pretty standard fare there. Okay. We're going to move on to the trigger mechanism here in a moment. For the magazine, push up and forward on the follower until it pops out, just like that. Okay, it's your magazine body. If you want, you can drive this little pin out to get this apart, but for most disassembly purposes, in terms of just cleaning and maintenance, you don't have to worry about it. This is riveted in place. So the spring and the follower is all one unit. Just clean it as one unit. To disassemble the bolt, this is how it comes out of the rifle. Pull the cocking piece rearward and rotate till it's to this position. All right, that removes tension from the whole system. Take the actual charging handle or cocking handle, whatever you call it, pull it out, rotate out. All right, take the bolt, just give it a tug and rotate a little bit, and the sleeve and bolt mechanism will come out in one assembly. Give it a little tap, that falls out. There's your two components there. To go the rest of the way, you're going to go ahead and hold the bolt in your hand like this, rotate it and allow it to decompress into the slot as if it were fired. Take the spring, compress it with just hand pressure, and your firing pin will come off. See how that goes on and off? Just like that. Firing pin, spring, and then all of that comes out just like that. That's your basic bolt assembly. If you want, you can remove the extractor, but generally, unless something's messed up, it's not necessary. That's your basic stripping of the bolt. We're going to get that cleaned up and we'll get it back together later. All right, we're going to have a quick look at this trigger mechanism. Now, the trigger mechanisms on these things can be taken out, but I'm not going to do it in this particular video. And the reason being is because I actually took a closer look at this, and the pivot pin that the trigger pivots on is actually a flared and stepped pin. That flare has to be removed in order to get it out. Now, if I were to hit this hard enough, sure, it'll come on out. But then the problem lies is once I reinstall everything, that pin has to be reflared so it won't walk out. Now, I'm assuming that the Swiss did that to keep the trigger in place without, they didn't want it walking out in a combat situation, training, or otherwise. They just wanted it to be in place very well. Now, the nice thing about the K31 is that the trigger mechanisms in them are extremely good. These things break at about 3.5 pounds, so it's really not even necessary to remove the trigger components, but I'm just letting you know that if you decide you want to, you're going to have to find a way to flare that pin back out. But you see it pivots against that point. You got a 2-stage trigger. There's your first stage, and then a nice clean break. These are just very, very nice triggers. I mean, you cannot beat a K31 trigger. So I thought you guys would like to at least see how this whole arrangement is laid out. I'm not going to disassemble it, like I said, just because there's really no reason to. But if you do, that's what you're going to have to contend with. So that's pretty much basic components on a K31, which you can expect to have to mess with in terms of disassembling them. All right, your bolt retaining latch is this big ugly hunk of metal right here. This little latch rides in that groove right here, and it locks your bolt in place, and that's all that's meant to do. When you remove the bolt, this is what you push down to take it out. This is also another part that is typically not designed to be removed. It's actually flared in place. It can be driven out, but again, a lot of these Swiss guns, I mean, they build stuff right from the ground up, and with these, you really don't even want to remove them unless you just really have to. You can generally clean around all of this stuff no problem, or if you're like me and you use an ultrasonic, then just run it in the ultrasonic and be done with it. All right, well that's pretty much your basic field stripping on a K31. The other components that I showed you, they're not really designed to be taken out on a regular basis. The purpose of this video is to discuss basic field stripping and how to keep the gun clean and usable as you go. The bolt mechanism, obviously the most important component, keep it clean. You know, the K31 generally doesn't have a lot of extraction power, so make sure you keep your chamber nice and clean so you get good smooth extraction. The bores on them generally clean up great. That's really about it. There's not a whole lot to taking care of one of these things. In a future video, I'm going to show you several bolt mechanisms that you can expect to run into that are milsurp. So at least give you a little bit of a primer on what to look for with these milsurp bolt mechanisms. That's the most common part that you're going to disassemble for cleaning, especially if you get something like a punctured primer where the gases are actually escaping into the bolt, like on a Mauser or a Mosin. See, the Swiss didn't use corrosive primed ammunition, so you're not really going to have that problem. But even if you did get a punctured primer and something like this, you would still want to take it apart and clean it, because believe it or not, those escaping gases can actually impede the movement of parts and put excessive wear and tear on the gun itself. So these K31s are just beautiful guns. They're very well made, they're very accurate, and hopefully when it's all said and done, this gun is going to be one hell of a tack driver. Stay tuned for the progress of this little gun, because it's going to change a lot in about the next month or two. So we appreciate you watching, and you guys have a good day.